The silk sheets were cool against Julian's skin, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat radiating from Asher Vance, who was pressed against him. The penthouse, 50 stories above the glittering city, was silent save for the soft hum of the climate control and Asher's ragged breathing. Asher nuzzled into Julian's neck, his voice a miserable whisper, telling Julian not to be angry, that he would try harder to make it work. Julian turned his head, forcing himself to look at Asher's predicament. It remained stubbornly unresponsive. He gave a slight nod. He wasn't angry. It was, after all, never meant for him. Floating at the edge of his vision, shimmering like a heat haze, were words only he could see. The Alpha's body will only ever respond to the true Omega. That explained the last 30 minutes of fruitless effort. Asher's despondency deepened at Julian's silence, his large frame trembling. He insisted it was only for Julian, that it would never be for anyone else. He was like a massive, misunderstood hound, desperate to prove his loyalty. Julian found it strangely endearing and silenced him with a soft kiss. He told Asher to stop crying, that he never said he didn't want him. Hope flared in Asher's eyes. He asked if they could try again, swearing on his life it would work this time. Julian doubted it. A recent trip to the country's top urologist had confirmed Asher was in perfect physical health. The problem wasn't mechanical. It was narrative, and the timing was terrible. The spectral text scrolling in his periphery warned him of the protagonist's imminent arrival. Leo Sterling was about to appear, catch them in this compromising position, and shatter. In the ensuing chaos, Asher, finally snapping to his senses, was scripted to kick Julian to the floor, verbally eviscerate him to prove his devotion to Leo, and then, when that failed, drag Julian to the basement and carve out his scent gland. Julian had always been forbidden from the reinforced wine cellar in the sublevel of the penthouse. Asher's eyes suddenly glazed over, his voice turning husky as he asked for a bite, for a mark. His lips ghosted over the sensitive skin of Julian's nape. Just then, a delicate, almost theatrical cry came from the foyer. Leo's voice. A hairline crack appeared in the bedroom door. Asher growled, a low, possessive sound. He told Julian to ignore it. A hand covered Julian's eyes, and a sharp, electric pain lanced through his neck. Asher's scent, a potent and intoxicating mix of aged sandalwood and fresh rain, flooded his system, overwhelming and dizzying. Julian gasped for air, weakly telling him to slow down. Asher didn't stop. He murmured against Julian's skin, a seductive, hypnotic question of whose he was. The potent pheromones were dissolving his thoughts. He looked dazedly at Asher, his own answer lost in the sound of a sharp, horrified scream from the doorway. Clarity returned like a splash of icy water. Leo Sterling stood framed in the doorway, his lower lip caught between his teeth, his eyes wide and crimson-rimmed. His slender shoulders shook, a perfect portrait of fragile, resilient beauty. It was an image designed to evoke pity and protection in anyone who saw it. Even Julian felt a sliver of it. Then get out. Asher's voice was a blade. All the tender affection from moments before had vanished, replaced by a seething, raw irritation. Leo froze, his expression a mask of confusion, as if he couldn't comprehend why Asher would speak to him that way. The phantom text flared, providing context. In the original narrative, Julian was a mere tool, a pawn to be used in Asher and Leo's protracted, dramatic courtship. Their marriage was a sham, born from a petty squabble. Leo, in a fit of pique, had refused Asher's proposal but couldn't stand the thought of anyone else having him. So he'd convinced his father to find Julian, the long-lost, true-born son of the Thorn family who had been swapped at birth and raised in obscurity, to marry Asher in his place. Leo had always believed this marriage was temporary, a game, and that Asher's heart was fundamentally his. The shimmering words in the air echoed the sentiment, a chorus of unseen voices. Poor Leo, he just wanted to make up. That bastard Julian doesn't even deserve to be his brother. Asher needs to get his act together for the real story to begin. But one fleeting comment, quickly buried, gave Julian pause. Does anyone else feel like the characters are going off script? The script had been broken from the moment he met Asher Vance. The story dictated he was a poor, forgotten heir, raised in a rural backwater, meeting his fiancée for the first time at the altar. But that wasn't his life. He was Julian Thorn, adopted son of the wealthiest man in the state, raised in the lap of luxury, who had met his legendary fiancée, Asher Vance, at a gala on his 22nd birthday. The realization struck him. Asher must have been aware of the narrative for a long time. It was the only way to explain the dual, conflicting marriage contracts. The plot was unraveling from the very beginning. I got rid of him. Aren't you going to praise me? Asher's voice pulled him back. Leo was gone, and Asher was now seeking approval. Julian pointed a finger at the phantom text hanging in the air. Asher's eyes followed his finger, but he saw nothing. He simply captured Julian's hand, bringing the finger to his lips. He murmured about how long and pale Julian's fingers were, how soft they felt. Julian pulled his hand back. He hadn't been offering a snack. He tried again, asking what he saw there. Asher just blinked, a picture of innocence, and replied that he saw Julian's lovely hand. So he couldn't see it. What, then, had been his catalyst for awakening? Did he know the whole story? And what was his goal in arranging their engagement so far ahead of the script schedule? The questions swirled in his head, aggravated by the fresh, temporary mark on his neck. A wave of dizziness washed over him. Asher's expression shifted to one of alarm. He exclaimed that Julian was burning up and rushed to get medication and water. Lying in bed, Julian watched his phone screen light up with an incoming call from Leo Sterling. He let it ring. It seemed the major plot points were unavoidable. No matter the process, the events that propelled Leo and his protagonist suitor, Caleb Reed, together would still occur. He waited, but Asher didn't return. Instead, the sounds of a muted argument drifted up from the living area below. Leo, somehow, was back, curled up on the Italian leather sofa, his face flushed. A cloying, overly sweet scent of peach Bellini saturated the air. Asher stood over him, fists clenched, the veins in his neck standing out in stark relief. The phantom text flared again. Just mark him already. What is he waiting for? He wouldn't do that to Julian. That scum Julian doesn't matter. Leo is in pain. Julian had no interest in the spectral debate. He saw Asher notice him on the landing, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Asher asked why he was out of bed. Julian stated he was thirsty. Asher promised to bring water up immediately and urged him to go back to his room. With a final glance at Leo, who was now whimpering for help, Julian turned and retreated. The fever worsened, and as he drifted into a delirious sleep, he thought he heard Asher's voice, indistinct but for the clear sound of Leo's name. 2 days later, the fever finally broke, leaving him feeling like dehydrated fruit. Asher, however, was undeterred, covering him in kisses. In the shower, Asher proposed an idea. He wanted Julian to come work at his company. His reasoning was simple. He wanted to be with Julian at all times. Julian agreed, on the condition that he would be Asher's executive assistant. A week later, Julian started at Vance Industries. As he predicted, with the position filled, Leo didn't join the company. Instead, he immediately took a job as Caleb Reed's assistant. The first major confrontation was scheduled to happen in 3 days. According to the Phantom script, Leo and Caleb would come to Vance Industries for a meeting. During the meeting, both he and Leo would be forced into a simultaneous heat. When Julian begged Asher for help, Asher would witness an intimate moment between Leo and Caleb, become consumed by jealousy, and abandon a suffering Julian to claim Leo with a public, temporary mark. This would ignite the war between the two alphas. To prevent this, Julian carried suppressants at all times and drilled Asher relentlessly. What would he say if he saw Leo Sterling? Get lost. And Caleb Reed? Get lost. And Julian Thorne? I'm Julian's dog. He pushed open the heavy glass doors to the boardroom. The scent of overripe peaches hit him like a wall. Asher's brow furrowed instantly. The simple reminders weren't enough. The pull of the narrative was strong. Asher squeezed his hand, a silent promise to trust him. Julian forced a smile, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. The peach scent intensified until it nearly obscured Julian's own subtle fragrance of aged paper and Earl Grey tea. Caleb Reed scowled, releasing his own aggressive pheromones, the sharp, metallic scent of gunpowder. Julian's lungs burned, as if a firecracker had gone off in his chest. Across the table, Leo, ever the delicate flower, collapsed. Leo. Caleb rushed to his side. Asher's grip on Julian's hand became painfully tight. His eyes were dark, fixed on Leo. Caleb felt the hostile gaze and shot back a glare, his eyes flicking venomously towards Julian. Then, Asher let go of his hand. Julian's breath caught. Julian, Asher's voice was strained. Let's go back to the office. He swept Julian into his arms, cocooning him in his sandalwood and rain scent. But it was tainted, laced with the phantom sweetness of peaches. The narrative's influence was absolute. Julian's heat came on with a violent, unnatural force. 6 vials of suppressants did nothing to quell it. He curled on the sofa in Asher's private office, a sharp, stabbing pain pulsing from his scent gland. Asher, he gasped, mark me. A knock at the door. Mr. Vance? Mr. Sterling is here. The door swung open, and the suffocatingly sweet peach scent poured in, a declaration of war. The shimmering text reappeared. Why is he hesitating? It's not a hard choice. He can't be falling for the stand-in. That snake Julian is faking it. He wants to trap him. Julian forced his eyes open. Leo lost his balance and crumpled dramatically to the floor. Asher's face was a mask of tension. His body coiled as if to spring towards him. Asher, don't go. Julian's voice was a thread. He grabbed Asher's suit jacket, a desperate, undignified plea. Don't go. I need you. He's bleeding. Someone call 911. The sudden chaos outside swallowed his words. Julian trembled, his hand reaching out. Asher, please, don't leave me. I'll be right back, Julian. Asher's voice was gentle as he leaned down to kiss his forehead. Despite his begging, Asher turned and walked away. The fabric of his jacket slipped through Julian's fingers, leaving only a chilling emptiness. As he watched Asher run towards Leo, Julian closed his eyes, and his consciousness plunged into an endless, suffocating darkness. He felt as though he were being dragged through water, submerged and then pulled out over and over. A wet, suffocating feeling filled him. He struggled, but it only provoked a more intense response. His breath, his consciousness, his very body felt as if it were being torn apart and consumed. Suddenly, the weight lifted. He managed to pry his heavy eyelids open a fraction. Asher's face, flushed with exertion and a strange, triumphant light, filled his vision. "Julian, I'm gonna mark you now." Sharp teeth pierced his skin. But the gasp of pain that escaped him wasn't from the bite. It was from below. He writhed, his hands flailing. No, Julian, it's me. It's working." Asher's voice was thick with excitement. And indeed, it was working. But what did that have to do with him? He'd just been exposed to Leo in full heat. A corpse would have responded. Asher, oblivious, asked if he wasn't satisfied. Julian told him no. Asher's face fell as he asked why. He'd even measured. It was impressive. He gestured towards Julian's lower abdomen. Julian angrily pushed him away. He didn't care if it was a foot long. He was not satisfied. Asher fell silent, his lower lip trembling, on the verge of tears. Julian dragged his aching body up and poured a glass of cold water. By the time he felt fully human again, Asher was limp once more. He tried to explain, but Julian cut him off. There was nothing to explain. He only reacted to Leo Sterling. Julian rubbed his temples, exhausted. If Asher couldn't break free from the narrative completely, they had no future. This was only the beginning of the story. How could he endure the part where Asher was scripted to forcibly and permanently mark Leo? Asher crawled over on his knees, taking Julian's hand. He apologized for leaving him. Julian sighed and pulled him into an embrace, admitting he was also at fault for lashing out. Asher fiercely shook his head, insisting it was all his fault, swearing he would never leave Julian again. "All right," Julian said, pulling back. "From now on, you answer every question I ask with the complete truth." Asher nodded obediently. "Have you seen or heard anything strange? Like text that isn't there?" "No." "What are your feelings about Leo Sterling and Caleb Reed?" "I hate them," Asher said without hesitation. "They're always trying to bother you. And what if, just hypothetically, the person you loved was Elle?" Asher covered his mouth, his expression wounded. "There are no hypotheticals. I only love you. But what if? There is no what if. I will never love anyone but you." "Then what did you do just now? After you sent them away?" "I was worried you'd be upset by the other sense on me," Asher explained, his answer a little too smooth. "So I took a shower. Then I was surprised to find, well, that I was ready. So I came to mark you. But you weren't happy. Not a single leak," and the narrative looped right back to Julian's dissatisfaction. He was still angry. Seeing he'd get nothing more, Julian changed tactics. He opened a shopping app and told Asher to pick one. Asher's eyes lit up. He smothered Julian in kisses before carefully selecting the most risque French-made outfit. He declared his love for Julian and promised to give him all his money. Before the package arrived, an invitation did: Leo Sterling's birthday gala. Asher's expression darkened. He said he didn't want to go. Julian told him to stay home. Then, this party was the setting for the second major confrontation. Leo, faking a pregnancy, would have a dramatic morning sickness episode. Caleb Reed, to save Leo's reputation, would kiss him in front of Asher and announce their engagement. Asher, consumed with rage, would forcibly drag Leo away. And he, Julian, the villain, was scripted to escalate things by pretending to be pregnant himself, driving Leo to despair and leading to the story's first climax. Asher, fully devolved into a deranged antagonist, using violence against Julian to blackmail Leo into becoming his lover. Compulsory love. If Asher didn't go, perhaps the plot could be altered. "No," Asher said firmly. "I'm your dog. Wherever you go, I go." Then promise me, Julian said, his gaze intense. You will not leave my side again. Asher raised his hand and swore an oath. The Sterling estate was ablaze with lights. As the darlings of their social circle, and with Leo's recent association with the up-and-coming magnate Caleb Reed, the birthday gala was the event of the season. Yet, it was Julian everyone wanted to talk to. As the adopted son and heir apparent of the Thorne financial empire, he was the de facto gatekeeper to the state's entire economy. The spectral text exploded. Holy shit, the villain is a finance bro? Money can't buy class. He's still trash. Are you forgetting your precious Leo broke into a married couple's home on their wedding night? The only reason Leo got in was because Asher let him. Proof he doesn't want the ugly substitute. Someone was defending him. A good sign, perhaps. Am I not handsome enough? Asher's voice was a low pout in his ear. Why are you looking at everyone else? Julian turned his head and was immediately captured in a deep, searing kiss, right in front of everyone, especially Leo Sterling. He was left breathless, leaning against Asher for support. Apologies, Asher said with a grin that wasn't apologetic at all. My husband is just too tempting. Across the room, Leo's eyes reddened. Caleb moved to comfort him, and Leo fell into his arms, sobbing quietly. The whispers started, loud enough to be heard. That Julian Thorne is a predator. He stole Leo's fiancée and now he's flaunting it. If Leo weren't so kind, Julian would have nothing. Asher tried to cover Julian's ears, but Julian pushed his hands away. He wanted to hear what Leo would say. Leo, nestled against Caleb, looked at Julian. His eyes filled with a carefully crafted mix of resentment and pitiable vulnerability. Brother, he began. What was that barking sound? Asher cut him off, looking around at the other guests with faux confusion. Does anyone else hear a stray dog? It's not safe here, Julian. We should go home. As they made to leave, a hand grabbed the hem of Julian's jacket. Leo stood there, eyes red, a defiant tremor in his voice. What if I was pregnant with your child? The phantom text went wild with speculation. It must have happened in the cellar. I knew he could never love the substitute. Julian, however, believed Asher. He had never touched Leo. But this development was alarming. If a key plot point failed to occur, did the narrative invent a new one, or simply fast forward to the next? I'm not, Asher said, his eyes welling up with tears, looking for all the world like a wrongly accused wife. Brother, I know this isn't fair to you, Leo pleaded, his voice choked with emotion. But the engagement was always mine. I was just being childish. For the sake of the baby, can you please give him back to me? He made a show of starting to kneel. Asher's voice was ice. Julian is the only one who can have a dog like me. You get away. The crowd and the phantom text collectively gasped. Wait, Asher is the villain's dog? He just called the protagonist a stray and then offered himself up on a platter. How can anyone say he doesn't love Julian now? Leo stared in disbelief as Asher took Julian's hand and placed it on his own head. Tell him, Julian. Tell everyone I'm your only dog. Julian absently stroked his hair. Just then, Caleb shouted. Leo was having a severe morning sickness episode and needed his pheromones. At that, Julian calmly took out his phone and dialed 911. He suggested they let a doctor determine if there was a pregnancy to be concerned about. In the original script, both Asher and Leo were unaware the pregnancy was fake. Leo was supposed to have a miscarriage during the compulsory love arc, cementing his belief that Asher was a monster. By exposing the lie now, Julian hoped to bypass that entire traumatic storyline. The doctors arrived swiftly. After a brief examination, the verdict was delivered. Mr. Sterling was not pregnant. Leo collapsed and Caleb shot Julian a strange, calculating look. As the party broke up, Caleb intercepted them. Asher immediately shielded Julian, his sandalwood scent turning sharp and territorial. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Caleb said, holding up his hands. "I just want to talk." He admitted he believed Asher hadn't touched Leo. The real question, he said, was how Julian knew the pregnancy was a fabrication. Julian's reply was cryptic. What if he had been the one to touch him? Caleb dismissed it instantly. Julian wouldn't. He didn't know how he knew, but he was certain. That certainty was a gift from the phantom text. Until the end of the novel, Caleb Reed, a man supposedly madly in love, never once marked Leo Sterling. It was his way of not harming him. A call from Leo interrupted their strange détente, and Caleb hurried away. The following weeks were quiet. The French-made costume arrived. Asher began working from home, which unlocked a variety of new experiences. He was still functionally useless in the conventional sense, but he was creative and attentive. One afternoon, Julian was sprawled on a chaise lounge, utterly spent, when Asher, kneeling on the floor, let out a triumphant shout. "Julian, it's working. I'm working again." He was even more excited than the first time, insisting Julian feel the proof before shyly pressing him down into the cushions. He asked if it was okay. Julian considered it. He asked how long the last time had been. Asher sheepishly admitted to 3 minutes. Not exactly satisfying. But seeing the medicine bottles on the counter, remembering Asher's diligent workouts and foul-tasting herbal teas, Julian relented. Maybe this time would be longer. It wasn't disappointing exactly, just not enough. He suspected the author of the original story had a very limited understanding of human biology. Asher, undeterred, promised to keep trying, vowing to achieve a blissful life for them. He redoubled his efforts. For 3 months, life was peaceful. The phantom text vanished. Julian worried. Skipping the compulsory love arc meant Asher and Leo's relationship never officially ruptured. The double arrow of affection in the original script still existed, meaning Asher could still be susceptible to the narrative's control. He searched the phantom script in his memory for the next major plot point, but found nothing but a series of escalating abuses and kidnappings that didn't fundamentally alter the relationship. Then, one evening, Asher started complaining of feeling unwell. He was burning up. A doctor was called, but the fever that receded overnight returned the next day. For a week, Julian shuttled him between specialists, fearing some rare, undetectable disease. But every test came back negative. It was just a persistent, low-grade fever that was draining the life from him. "It's nothing, Julian," Asher would say, his face pale and drawn. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. He hadn't had a proper rut in a month. He just wanted to be held. The more he said it, the more Julian worried. One day, as Asher held him close, his sandalwood scent, usually so rich and grounding, flared with a brilliant, desperate intensity. It felt like the final, beautiful glow of a dying star. "Let's go on our honeymoon," Asher whispered against his lips. The scent was mixed with the bitter taste of medicine. Julian nodded, burying his face in Asher's chest. The day before they were set to leave, Julian did something he knew he would regret. He arranged a meeting between Asher and Leo. It was a test. If Asher's fever broke, it meant he was truly breaking free. If not, at least they could have their trip in peace. Leo agreed immediately. In the VIP hospital suite, the moment Asher caught the faint, residual scent of peach Bellini on Julian's clothes, his expression turned thunderous. "You've been bad, Julian," he murmured, And before Julian could react, Asher's teeth sank into his gland. It wasn't a gentle marking. It was a punishment, a massive, overwhelming injection of his pheromones. Julian's body went limp, the pain and sensory overload forcing tears from his eyes. He struggled, but Asher held him fast, biting down harder. The world went black. When he awoke, his savaged neck was bandaged. Asher sat beside the bed, his face flushed with health, a gentle smile on his lips. He helped Julian drink some water. The winter sun streamed into the room. Julian felt disoriented, as if he'd been asleep for a century. Asher asked if he was hungry and presented a tray of his favorite food, perfectly cooked and still warm. After 2 days of unconsciousness, he was famished and ate everything. That afternoon, they both underwent full physicals. The results were conclusive. They were both in perfect health. Except for Asher's one persistent issue. Julian felt a profound sense of despair. It was an impossible choice. Contact with Leo was a punishment that endangered his life, but avoiding Leo meant Asher couldn't live a normal life with him. The doctor said the herbal treatments are showing some effect. Asher said that evening. "Can we try tonight?" Julian glanced at the empty, private parking garage. Without a word, he climbed into Asher's lap. 2 months was a long time. The thrill of the semi-public space was intoxicating. "Julian," Asher breathed, his eyes blazing. "Can I go all the way?" His heart hammered against his ribs. "Asher," Julian said, his voice shaking slightly. "Mark me. Permanently." Asher froze. "Yes," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I will mark you completely. You will be mine. Even if you regret it, you will never be able to leave." He never got the chance. Porsche, moving at an impossible speed, slammed into their car. The world became a kaleidoscope of twisting metal and shattering glass. Julian's last coherent thought before darkness took him was a shared, absurd one with Asher. They had both managed to pull up their pants. They survived. Julian was battered but stable. Asher's condition was worse. To shield Julian from the worst of the impact, he had sustained a severe head injury. The doctors warned of possible amnesia. Julian could handle amnesia. He could make Asher fall in love with him all over again. But if Asher woke up remembering only Leo Sterling, Julian ground his teeth. He had the power and influence to make someone disappear. The hospital food was tasteless after being spoiled by Asher's cooking. He returned to the room to find his worst fear realized. Leo Sterling sat by Asher's bed, tears of joy streaming down his face as he watched Asher stir. "Do you remember Julian Thorne?" Leo asked, his voice trembling with hope. Asher's gaze was blank. "Don't know him." Julian's heart plummeted. He pushed the door open, his face a mask of cold fury. But then Asher spoke again, his eyes finding Julian in the doorway, a look of stunned wonder on his face. "Do you believe in love at first sight?" Leo's face went sheet white. In a blink, Asher, who had been hooked up to a dozen machines, was standing before Julian, carefully wiping his hands on his hospital gown before reaching out. "Julian," he said, his voice filled with a raw, sincere reverence. "Can I be your dog?" The spectral text, absent for so long, burst into existence. A chaotic, celebratory explosion of color and words. "This is it. Amnesia can't beat true love. He's so pure now. He'll last for days. Go for it, Julian." The real sweet story finally begins. Tears welled in Asher's eyes. "Is that a no?" he whispered, a single drop rolling down his cheek. He had forgotten everything but his devotion to Julian. "Yes," Julian said, a smile breaking through his shock. "Yes, you can." Asher's face lit up. He asked if he could kiss him, if he could hold him, promising he was very strong now, that he could go for as long as Julian wanted. Julian laughed, a sound of pure relief. He knew Asher's stamina all too well. If he was truly fixed, he might not survive the encounter. Leo, defeated, slipped out of the room unnoticed. The doctor confirmed that with frequent and close contact, Asher's memories might return. Asher took close contact to heart, demanding kisses and cuddles constantly. When his first post-accident rut arrived, Julian, still cautious, refused to let him touch him. Asher cried, his body trembling with feverish need. Julian felt an answering heat curl in his own stomach. He gave in. It wasn't 3 days. The rut lasted 10, and Julian spent the entire time in bed. The day he was finally strong enough to stand, he found Asher, dressed in a tailored suit, kneeling on one knee. "Julian," he asked, his eyes shining, "will you marry me?" "I will." "Will you be my husband?" "I can't. I'm already married." Asher's smile faltered. After a moment of intense thought, he looked up, his expression humble. "Can you divorce him?" "No." "Then, can I be your affair partner?" "Yes." "Thank you, Julian. I love you so much." Content to remain by his side, Asher became even more devoted and far more audacious. Their encounters were no longer confined to the penthouse. Offices, conference rooms, stairwells, the parking garage, all became their domain. Asher developed a particular fondness for lovemaking against locked doors, endlessly whispering wicked questions about what would happen if his husband found them. Julian would think about it seriously, then reply that he would break up with him. One afternoon, in the middle of a heated embrace in his office, Asher suddenly went still. Julian looked back and saw a terrifying, possessive darkness swirling in his eyes. Asher asked if he could lock him away, so Julian would only ever look at him. "You can do it right now," Julian said, offering his wrists. Asher didn't move. His body grew hotter. Julian heard his own voice tremble as he spoke. "Asher, mark me, for good." The complete marking was a 3-day ordeal of exquisite pain and pleasure. When it was done, Asher's unique scent was permanently woven into his bloodstream, a bond that would last until death. Afterward, Asher knelt by the bed, his demeanor once again docile. His memories had returned. He apologized, confessing that he had something to tell him. Julian knew. The phantom text had filled in all the blanks. Asher had awakened to his predicament long ago, forced to live through the novel's plot countless times, slowly learning how to deviate. Knowing some events were unavoidable, he had decided to imprison Leo. The time Julian had found him seething in the living room, he wasn't fighting his attraction to Leo, but the urge to make him disappear permanently. After the disastrous meeting, he had only pretended to take Leo to the hospital. He'd actually had him shipped to a remote facility in Africa. His month-long fever was the narrative's punishment for going off script. When Julian had brought Leo to him, the punishment had transferred, which was why Julian had felt he'd slept for a century. The car crash was the final, brutal price for their freedom. "I'm not angry about any of that," Julian said, his voice low. "The only thing I can't forgive is that you didn't trust me. You went through all of that alone. You know how I hate seeing you with him, even as part of a script. Asher Vance, you belong to me. You are only ever allowed to love me." "I'm sorry, Julian," Asher wept. "Hit me, punish me. I'll do anything as long as you forgive me." Julian wiped away imaginary tears. Anything? Anything. He had commissioned a few items, custom-made to Asher's measurements. A fine leather dog harness and a matching collar with a dual-sided lock. The revealing outfit did not seem to shame Asher in the slightest. He knelt eagerly on the floor. Julian ran a soft leather paddle over his thigh, watching red marks bloom on the pale skin. He tilted Asher's chin up, admiring the expression on his beautiful face. "What do you say when you see your master?" "Woof. Good. Crawl to me." Asher obeyed, his eyes fixed on the key in Julian's hand. Instead of unlocking the collar, Julian placed his foot on it, pressing down gently. Asher's eyes glazed over for a moment before he pressed his cheek against Julian's stomach. "Master," he whimpered, his voice wet and needy. "Please unlock me." Julian swallowed hard, a trickle of blood dripping from his nose. It was too much. "Julian," Asher's voice was suddenly clear, having scrambled onto the bed and pinned him down. "Whose am I?" Julian blinked, remembering the first time he'd been asked that question. He smiled. "Mine. Asher Vance is mine. My jealous, possessive, perfect dog."